Welcome to the Big Fat Gay Podcast, where we like to talk about the things that are weighing on our minds. My name's Don Marshall. I'm a big chubby guy living here in sunny Hollywood, and today I'm a T-Dep T-boy because I have this lovely sherbet-flavored tea that I'm enjoying. Thank you.
You are quite welcome. My name is Dan Oliverio, author, public speaker, and chubby chaser. And today I'm, I guess I'm a tea maker. All those capital T's.
The T-boy.
All those capital T's. You're welcome.
Oh, God. Trevor, just go.
Yeah, I'm Trevor Keyson. I'm a super chub. I am in West Hollywood as usual. And today I'm a waffle boy because I had some Eggo waffles for breakfast.
I made those too.
Yes. The key is to toast them twice.
Ooh.
Oh,
Extra.
okay.
Twice.
I always thought they were a little floppy.
Twice toasted waffles. My name is Michael. I am a chaser, and today I'm a sleepy boy, but I have my cauldron of coffee and my three best friends in the room with me ready to make a podcast.
Rock and roll.
But before we do that, we want to quickly pitch you on our Patreon, which we are kicking in full high gear.
It's got so much stuff.
We really have. Like, some of the content on there is really good. Like,
we are going in full blast.
It's post-COVID Patreon.
they may be mini-sodes, but they are sods.
They're sods. They're so sods.
I don't think our listeners know about this.
Oh.
So there is a new feature on the Patreon called the Cutting Room Floor.
It's hilarious.
Which is stuff that is cut from the podcast, which imagine if we had been doing this all along, Michael.
I know, we could have so much.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a sadistic part of me that's like, well, we could just go back. No, I'm not going back.
Do not do that to yourself.
It's too much. No, we take it's a fair amount of stuff too, and not everything that we cut from the show makes it in there, but it's a lot of our more rambling, funnier moments that really wouldn't make for a good episode, but it makes for something interesting to listen to.
If anything, those Cutting Room Floor segments underscore what a good job Michael does at making us sound
That's right.
coherent.
Yes.
That's why you need me. That's why I get paid the big bucks.
That's right. We don't sound like shit because all the shit is now in the cutting room floor files that you can listen to. So listen to our shit.
Yeah.
Yes. This month, so we just released our episode with Dan and I, our first ever mini-sode as a couple, talking about domestic chub chaser life.
It's so romantic.
Navigating stuff
It's very
like
romantic.
that.
It's very cute.
And later this month, I think Michael and I are going to be doing
Yes.
a sandwich special mini-sode, which I'm
That's
excited
right.
about.
I've been brainstorming, so we're each going to make our sort of our named sandwich. Like,
Yes.
what would our sandwich be? And I've been working on my ideas. I have to test them though. I have to go through a full process.
Does this involve like a tower and dropping it off the top of it? Or
No. Yep. Full
You have to
scientific
carry it
theory.
around and treat it like a baby.
It's actually interesting. Dan and I got into a sandwich conversation last week where we both realized that we need chopped liver on our sandwiches. If we're
chopped liver is an excellent spread.
Yeah, no. So
All right, fine. Pate is an excellent spread.
anyway, the point is we're going to be doing at least an hour of mini-sode per month. We have Cutting Room Floor 4 times a month, or 5 if we do 5 episodes. And we've got little behind-the-scenes videos all on Patreon, so please go support us there. It doesn't cost much. It's whatever you can afford, and we super appreciate it because we use that money to pay our editor of the show. Whoever that may be. Sometimes it's me. And we really appreciate it. We also have, do we want to do the Zoom?
Yeah. So we're going to plug this a couple times, but this is not a Patreon exclusive. This is a podcast
is for everybody.
listener
Yeah.
exclusive. In October, we're going to be doing another Zoom thing, but we're theming it around kind of self-care. It's going to be kind of like a group discussion about like skincare, things to make your home more fat friendly. If you're a fat person who wants your house to be fat friendly, or if you are someone who loves fat people and wants to accommodate your friends, lovers, family.
This is not so much a lecture, but basically people, all of you bringing best practices. So like this is what works for me.
Yeah, so we have our own things, but we also would love to hear your things, and because everybody has their own different creative solutions for all of these issues.
Yes.
So that will be happening in October. We'll remind you guys a couple times again. We'll also maybe put out a poll, or at least ask people individually what the best time of week and day would be, because obviously we have an international audience, and so it's a little troublesome to try and get the perfect time.
If this is something you sound really like, you're like, oh yes, I absolutely want to do this, send us a message and let
Please
us know
let
your
us
time
know.
zone and like
Yeah.
this time would be best for me, or like these times would not work at all for me.
Yeah.
Once this is done, we're going to record the Zoom, and it's going to the recording will live on our Patreon, just because I feel like that's a good way to keep it safe for everyone.
And if they want to write us right now without skipping around the episode or looking for the link, what is our email address?
Oh, yeah.
bigfatgaypod@gmail.com.
That's right.
Boom, baby.
Boom.
Nailed it. End of episode.
And just to be clear, the Zoom call will be for everybody, but it will live in a recording on Patreon.
Exactly.
Yes.
So I think that's all of the business we've got going on.
Yeah.
Shall we dive into our...
Yeah. I got a real... the pop culture is themed in that.
The pop culture's theme is everything sucks.
Yeah. First up, we have a story about a plus size boutique.
Oh my God.
It is the name of the shop in Charlotte, North Carolina is Juicy Body Goddess.
Yes.
And this shop has been, it's a pillar of the community. It's been featured on the Today Show.
Yeah.
And apparently it got to enough notoriety that people started sending them hate mail for existing.
So the woman, the owner of the shop, is the reason why the shop got noticed at all is because she went viral greeting people with such enthusiasm.
She needs her own show.
Yeah, she's amazing. She reminds me a lot. I feel like she could play Lizzo's mom in like the TV movie version of Lizzo's life. Like she's just amazing and warm and everything that you would imagine somebody who would own a shop like this would be. She went viral, then she got on the Today Show and all those things. And
well, that just had to be stopped.
yeah,
there was kindness and niceness, and that just had to be stamped out.
She?
So people started sending all this hate mail about the usual, you are glorifying obesity.
Yeah, put down the chicken wing. Racist, in addition to anti-fat. Yeah.
Well, what's so interesting? It's like they play a couple of the recordings of people that
of messages that have been left on the voicemail.
It was never a clearer example in my life have I seen of what you were talking about, Dan. Of like these people going like, "You eat all these chicken wings and blah blah blah, and you deserve diabetes," and like. It's this.
It was a foregone conclusion that of course you're going to get diabetes. Therefore, you're promoting diabetes.
I hate you because you're going to get diabetes.
I hate you because you're going to get diabetes. Yeah. And I just want to know. I want to know, where are all the cigar shops and smoke shops getting their hate mail for promoting ill health?
Well, are they owned by fat people? Because then they will.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. Like, or the liquor store. Why aren't liquor stores getting bombarded with hate mail for like contributing to alcoholism?
I remember that when Rush Limbaugh was a big thing, right? He got a lot of hate for being fat. Right. But every photo of him had a big chomping cigar in his mouth and nobody ever commented. No,
because that was masculine.
Yes.
Sometimes a cigar is just a cigar.
Sometimes a cigar is just a dick.
A big fat smoking cock.
Suck on it.
I feel like we can just because the two topics are very intertwined in that they are very fat phobic responses.
This upcoming topic?
Yeah. So I want to just jump into the other one because there's a lot of crossover in discussing them.
Both. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Abercrombie and Fitch.
But wait, it's not your
there's more.
It's not your parents' Abercrombie and Fitch.
Yes. So they, and I feel like we talked about them, the kind of history of them, and then kind of like them trying to rebrand, trying to redeem themselves.
Previously, they had a history of like really doubling down on, no, we're only for pretty people.
And the CEO specifically, who is no longer there.
Yeah.
As of 2014, he is no longer the CEO.
And they became, or tried to become, or are becoming much more inclusive to the point where fat people can wear their clothes.
Yes.
And here's where the problem comes in.
And they featured a model.
A couple.
Couple
models.
No, these are just customers who posted.
Well, they say they're customers.
Yes.
They look like models.
They're I feel like they're Instagram models.
Yeah. But at any rate, plus size models / customers / people who bought their clothes and then put pictures of themselves wearing the clothes.
Tagging themselves on Abercrombie and Fitch's Facebook page or Instagram page.
Right. And they shared it.
Yeah. So basically Abercrombie and Fitch is saying, look who's wearing our clothes. Isn't this great? And then what happened, Trevor?
I mean, I don't think I need to say.
Exactly.
I think people just know. Our listener, unless this is someone's first episode, they're like, well, what happened? I don't understand.
Wait, the lava came down the mountain, and then what?
And so one of the comments was, new Abercrombie and Fitch ad just dropped. This season they're featuring diabetes and heart attacks.
Yeah.
So we talked about the whole thing with Juicy Body Goddess and people talking about diabetes. I am very curious when I was reading this. If they had a thin model who had the continuous glucose monitor, like the Freestyle Libre, if they had a thin model who had diabetes,
no problem at all.
And they
I
had
love that.
If people would be like, oh my God, it's so great that they're featuring people with diabetes. How great. How they're showing that people do, that this is a real problem people face.
It's never
love that.
It's never, ever about health. It's always about blame.
Exactly.
If you're a thin person with diabetes, not your fault. If you're a fat person with diabetes, well, it must be your fault.
You earned it.
You earned it. So it's never about health, always about blame.
Or, like Sports Illustrated has a thin model who has, a big chest scar and like I survived a heart attack and like, how brave, how noble. But if it was a fat person, it would be like, well, of course they had a heart attack because they're fat.
Yeah.
It's just this.
There's one that happened if they just lost some weight.
It is not about health, and it is just so obvious and annoying. And
Abercrombie and Fitch did not take the post down.
Yes, people claimed they did, but it's still up.
To the point where Abercrombie and Fitch had to say, and we didn't take the post down because you're saying we took it down. We didn't take it down.
Yeah.
And I love that, they're standing up for it. They're not doing a thing about it.
Yeah.
Well, their economic future depends on it.
But you know what? That has always been true. But, we've talked about it so many times on the podcast. Just because fat clothing sells doesn't mean they'll make it.
It also made a point in one of the articles, I don't remember which one, of 50% of the American public cannot find clothing in their size outside of 13% of all American malls.
Yeah. Yeah. People are classified as quote unquote obese. Some percentage of
But the American average size can only.
It's only
insane.
13% of stores have that size available. And I will say the Abercrombie and Fitch like plus size clothing does not go that high.
Yeah.
Like
it does for them.
It does for them. Don't get me wrong. This is improvement over Abercrombie and Fitch in the past.
I mean, that thin son of a bitch CEO would have had a heart attack if he'd seen how big the sizes are now.
But it wouldn't have been his fault.
No, certainly not.
I mean, I agree it is not that big. And, we have covered Saucy West's fight for inclusivity and that like demanding more from companies, from retailers, from designers. And I mean, I'm that because a lot of the, brands, when they expand sizing, I still can't wear it. But I think it is incremental change and very much for incremental change because it means we're getting there.
Yeah. And somebody will be able to. Somebody who didn't used to be able to wear their clothes will now be able to. And that's something. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's Fat Watch
in 2022.
Lizzo edition.
Yeah.
Oh my God, so much Lizzo.
She didn't go anywhere. She flew on and we watched her sail into the distance to bigger and better things. Including winning a VMA.
Yes.
For Song for Good?
It was the best music video.
It was the video for good.
And I love how she says, I don't know what that means, but I'm glad.
Yeah. And I don't know what that means either.
Did you see the dress?
Yeah,
oh my God,
dress is.
God, that dress was. Yeah, the dress is.
We did have a listener write in, and he was wondering about the red carpet dress.
Yeah,
that she wore.
Loved the red carpet dress.
It was this huge, like billowing, but like sculpted, giant, flowing, thing.
So I have a very, very unpopular take here.
Uh-oh.
I was not a big fan of the red carpet dress.
So the listener wasn't either.
I mean, I didn't hate it, but I was just like,
he felt like it was covering her up.
Yes, but also, I don't know. I didn't feel like it was that. And I think if I saw it in person, it would be different. But I don't know. It's not my favorite.
Maybe it didn't photograph well.
I mean, I really loved the pink outfit for when she was performing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And the black with like the cone bras.
The black
and
one, yeah.
The nose
the
ring.
Madonna dress.
The Madonna dress.
Yeah.
I loved that she did that.
Can I just say, it looks so much better on Lizzo.
Kind of agree.
It's the first time I've liked the nose ring to ear chain, which is like a very 90s thing, which I never really got. I'm like, but Lizzo, it's like, okay, no, I get it.
I mean, Lizzo can do no wrong.
Anyway,
and her acceptance speech for this award was fucking phenomenal. Starting with the part that isn't in this, because there's a video of it that I want to play, like a clip of it. But she says, I don't know what video for good means, but I do know what voting means. And she sort of turned it into encouraging people to vote to repeal certain laws like Texas.
Let's just repeal Texas.
And
Just
everywhere
repeal
else.
Texas.
Everywhere else. Yeah, and to basically use your power to vote to make it to affect good change in the world. And then she said this.
And now, to the bitches that got something to say about me in the press. You know what? I'm not gonna say nothing. They be like, Lizzo, why don't you clap back? Why don't you clap back? Cause bitch, I'm winning, ho. Big bitch is winning, ho! That's what bitches show paper, bitch!
I didn't want to cover this, but it comes. So just, do you all know what she's referring to?
I do not.
I do not.
Michael, you know. Okay, so
It's unanimous.
so last week on some podcast or something, Aries Spears from Mad TV
Oh,
Oh, I remember his
I
career.
remember him.
was asked about Lizzo's music, and he went on a tirade about her body,
Really?
and her health. And all this
Holy
stuff. And
shit.
For those of you who haven't seen Aries Spears in a while, he
He ain't
is
thin.
fat. He's fat.
Yeah, he was never
And-
thin.
And like was kind of like out of breath, just criticizing Lizzo's health. And
Oh, boy.
and then people were dragging him on Twitter, and then he released a video being like, why are you making fun of me?
Oh boy.
Like, and he went for her for no reason. I don't know.
But
misogynistic.
no, it's what we've been talking about this whole episode, which is what do you think of her music? And he goes off on what she looks like.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm sorry, Aries Spears. I hope you
Fall in a gutter.
get some therapy and learn to play the flute half as good as Lizzo or something. I don't know. Just that's what all that was. And kudos to Lizzo for just not even
Because I'm winning.
for having a platform
'Cause,
to
bitch,
really
I'm
just
winning.
to really just shoot him down and just being like, no, I'm just going to enjoy my win.
And to not even mention him.
Yeah.
Not even
Yeah.
bother.
I mean, if she had, he would have been overjoyed.
Oh my
Would-
God, yes. So
To have any sort of relevance,
He would have
past the 90s?
succeeded. He would have
Yeah.
succeeded. The fact that he's even being asked, I think part of it might have been like, why are you asking me about Lizzo? Why aren't you asking me about me?
I mean, nobody cares. It's always good to hear from Lizzo when she's being awesome.
Yes.
Yes.
So
Okay. Here we are.
our main topic this week, Michael, I feel like you should set it up because you kind of
Yeah.
were pitching this to us.
Basically, we were as we were batting around ideas for a main subject. I had this experience recently where I spent a lot of time with my two sisters on a weekend away together, and I'm very close to them. And then a couple weekends later, my partner and I, Michael, spent some time with our Chub Chaser friends at their place, and the difference in interaction for me, as far as like I felt exhausted after spending that much time with my sisters, even though I'm close to them, versus spending a weekend with our friends.
Yeah,
where
it's not like you don't like your sisters.
yeah, no. That's not the issue at all. It's just, and what it boiled down to for me was kind of a difference in how much am I having to sort of, the term masking, like how much are you sort of fitting yourself into a situation that you aren't necessarily part of or belong to, like my straight sisters versus my Chub Chaser gay couple friends. And it kind of brought up this idea of like, how do you relate to social situations? When do you get to just be yourself, and how does that affect your comfortability? And like I've identified myself as an introvert, which Stan has opinions on. But the point being that social situations frequently exhaust me. But it was really novel to see like, oh, I can spend an entire weekend with these two friends who are in our community and I get along with, and I don't feel exhausted afterwards.
Well, and I think there's several markers in that. They're gay, they're in the Chub Chaser scene, and there's nothing to navigate. There's no sexual politics to navigate because you're both in couples. And so it really is a lot of the stuff that I think maybe you go through your day concerned about, Michael. It's like that was all off the table.
Yeah. And it was really, really, so anyway, we wanted to kind of broaden it to what have been our experiences with those kinds of dynamics. And I think also looping in something like Bigger Vegas, where, as Dan pointed out, I had a great time, and that was also exhausting for me because there is that additional dynamic.
Oh yeah.
Of like, who's sleeping with whom, and is that on the table? Is it off the table? Are we just here to hang out? And anyway, so I thought it would be interesting to kind of talk about some of those things. And then also we had a sort of an offshoot of this of like couples hanging out with couples and all the different, I don't know, ways that can go right and wrong. So out of curiosity, to the extroverts in the room, Dan and Don, like, have you guys had an experience where you were in a social situation that you felt like you so didn't belong in that it was just, you were sort of, I don't know, like, did you ever feel like exhausted or like ready to get out of it again? And I would say more like maybe in your younger years, because Dan, you're very much like, I just don't put myself in this situation.
Well, no. All right, so here's my anecdote. I find this comes up more than I realized it would. So with Zooming during the pandemic,
oh God,
and yeah, exactly, and getting back in touch with old friends. So it got very popular for a while that old friend groups would hang out together on Zoom. So for example, all the people in my that I would hang out with from college, but not really. I never really hung out with them. They were all just in the theater department, and I was, in fact, if anything, I was probably the only theater major, and they were all like maybe half majors or non-majors. But the point was, like, I was probably more theater department than any of them, but I've never felt part of this clique. But here's the thing. So we were all in Los Angeles at a time, and we decided, we'll meet in person. And it was great seeing people, and they're talking, and we're interacting, and I have never been so bored in my life. And I'm like, why am I so bored? Why am I so not enjoying this? And I just got really in touch with, I am not part of this world. And when I was much younger and I didn't know who I was sexually, I would resent that world. I'd be like, how dare you? Why can't we do this? Why are you always so concerned about that? And then as I got more in touch with me, I'm like, oh no, that's just how that is.
Yeah.
And I got in touch with, I am so not part of that. Like, it's okay. Like, it would, the same way, like if you go to Paris and you realize, oh wow, I'm really not French. I am so not French.
Yeah.
But I think where you might experience it as wearing or tiresome, I experience it as being bored and like, can I leave now?
Yeah, it's sort of non-stimulating.
Yeah.
But it's that feeling of like, I just don't belong here. What about you, Don? I'm curious. Have you ever had an experience like that?
Very regularly for me. I work in the entertainment industry. I go to a lot of functions for either sort of executive stuff or actors and sports people, just because that's who I'm friends with.
Yeah.
And so in one side of the creatives or the producers, they tend to have a more sort of slick appearance, right?
Yeah.
Selling yourself is part of that career. I'm not that, right? I'm not physically, what's the best way to put this?
Well, it's as Dan puts it, in New York, you sell yourself with how you dress, and in LA, you sell yourself with how your body looks.
No, right? LA is a body culture.
Yeah.
Whereas in New York, you would dress up in a lot of fancy clothes, but in LA, you buy clothes that show off your body.
So what's interesting to me is, like, when I'm in the sort of producer realm, a lot of the people who dress schlubby or don't have the bodies that everyone else does, those are usually the people you need to impress. So when people show up in the room, often they will look at me and they'll kind of zoom in as like, I don't know who you are, but you might be somebody that I need to.
It's almost like, you're not dressed to impress. You must not have to.
Yeah, you must not have to. Whereas, so I
That's
end
a
up
great
feeling,
tactic.
well, I end up feeling a little uncomfortable because I've got people coming at me from directions that I'm not
expecting you to green light their show.
Yeah, like that's not me. Okay. And then on the actor front, it's very much like, I don't want to do you. I'm not going to talk with you. Right.
But
that's also all of my sort of mainstream gay interactions.
I was going to say, that's not actor,
world.
that's gay.
It's actor. It's actor too. Like, actors, I can't tell you.
Yeah.
I've got a friend who's this big sort of, mocap guy. So I keep meeting these beautiful, athletic model actresses through him. And most of them do not talk to me until he mentions in passing, he works for this company. He's this. And then all of a sudden I am the most interesting person in the room.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how fast that drains me.
I'm sure I have this a far less degree than you do, but that has happened in terms of like if I ever get introduced to a group, like similar kind of group as a director, people's eyes, their heads snap around so quickly that they just break.
Every actor and every department head in that room is all of a sudden your bestest buddy.
Yeah. And it is weird. Has there been an example of that professionally speaking where you did feel like you fit in, where you didn't have to have that kind of like...
Yeah, when I'm dealing with actual creatives, writers don't give a crap what you look like.
Yeah.
And especially working with, when I work with female writers and female producers, as soon as it comes out that I'm gay, I find a really easy work dynamic forms, and it sucks a lot less juice out of me.
Yeah.
They feel like, I don't know, I feel like there's an extra level of defenses that go down. Like they don't feel like they have to protect themselves.
Yeah, literally protect themselves.
Yeah.
Like how much sexual harassment goes completely unchecked.
Or that, you're going to have to protect the straight man's ego or there's just
or
a lot,
subtler things.
There's a lot of managing.
It literally removes a minefield.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Trevor?
Okay, well, so
the other little introvert in the room.
As someone who is married to an introvert, so there's something
Married to a
extrovert.
Married to an extrovert.
I love that Dan got offended at that.
Oh my God.
Married to a what?
I couldn't possibly.
I mean, Dan's offended at the whole concept of introvert.
I am not. You were so blowing this out of proportion.
Anyway, Trevor.
As someone who is married to an extrovert, I have frequently been put in the position, and this is something we worked through, of like going with Dan to like these.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. What I feel I feel like I am being like the child being dragged to like a grown up party where there was a couple's dinner we went to where they were discussing.
Can I give the background of who and what?
Yes.
Okay. So this is a very old friend from high school, and spoiler, I went to an all nerd high school.
Best kind, man. Best
Only
kind.
nerds. Only nerds.
What?
But okay, but he was a concert violinist. He had married a concert musician as well, and I have a pretty broad musical background, and so
they were discussing European opera. It was specifically like Swiss opera. Or
we
something.
were discussing. Well, no, it was Wozzeck. Anyway, the point was, it got like, oh, well, what do you think the political standards of a particular continent might influence the art and how they interpret their opera? As one does.
As this was going on, I felt myself like Benjamin buttoning and like shrinking down, and just like, I would like some crayons now so I can draw on the table, because this is just like excruciating, and like it was just so far removed from anything I could take part in. And then there was...
Can I just interject something really quick here? Because I think this is a really nice piece of news.
Yes.
So that friend, and at that particular dinner party, there was... he was kind of he was part of the mainstream of like, fat people are unhealthy and blah, blah, blah. And, most of my life's work is around subverting that. And he is now a fan of the podcast.
Oh, hello, that friend.
Yes. And there was just a couple other things where, like, as an introvert, like things like that are so draining to me. And like, it was like a gay Ivy League alumni thing in West Hollywood that Dan wanted me to go to.
Well, because I wanted my partner there.
Yes. And it's like, I am not Ivy League, and I am going to say I went to Columbia. And then they're like, oh, yes, of course. And then like,
Columbia.
Columbia College,
the other one.
College Chicago.
College of
And I was
Art.
like, I just don't want to like be constantly doing that, or, have them think I mean Columbia, New York, and then have it go to a point where it's like, actually, no, or just like, I don't know, just so not my like sleek, gay, Ivy League alumni.
I think selfishly, perhaps, part of what I love is like, I have this beautiful super chub partner, and I'm proud of him. I want to show him off.
You want to bring the arm candy.
Yeah. And but it's also self-expression for me, because and my work, because I mean, I'm not like it's in the service of that, but I want these guys to see a mixed size couple being happy and partnered, because they never see that.
Yeah. That's a lot for Trevor to have to take
That's
on.
a lot for Trevor to bear.
Well, I think it would be, if it were different, I think I could do it. Like do you remember we went to that mixer thing for Los Angelino.
Oh yeah,
Like the launch of this LA news website.
And by the way, that was your invitation.
Yes.
So it wasn't something that came through me.
You were the arm candy.
I was the arm candy, or at least Trevor had the impetus to go.
Yes, it was my invitation. And I don't know, I networked there. And
Oh, you did.
You worked the room.
Yeah, it was exhausting because it was basically, I don't know, it was all these different writers.
It wasn't like me introducing you to some alumni from Yale and like, oh, what do you do? Oh, well, I work in finance, you know.
Well, and I think now I am more like, I think I could maybe, this is not an agreement. This is not a contract. But I think maybe I could go to one of those now because I produce our podcast. I am a board member of the oldest
I completely agree
pet
with you.
rights organization.
You are on the record now, Trevor.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons I wanted to bring this sort of topic up, broadly speaking, was that I thought it was really enlightening for me to kind of piece together that it was possible to have an extended social interaction with anybody that wasn't like my partner, where I didn't feel exhausted afterwards. And I wonder how many listeners we have who maybe feel very like homebody, like, because that's totally me. Like quarantine honestly wasn't that difficult for me from a social perspective because I kind of am a homebody anyway.
Oh, Dan, Mr. Extrovert.
Oh, he was dying.
He settled in, I feel like, very nicely too.
Oh, did he?
Eventually, which was scary for me. Like, who am I?
No,
we did talk about that.
I get that. Like the length of the quarantine has made it hard for me to start reaching out again and start reestablishing those groups.
I found what changed for me was before the quarantine, if I spent a day without going out, I would be like, whoa, I'm really getting cabin fever.
Yeah.
And now I can spend days and days not going out. And I'm like, who is this person
Humans
who can
are
do
adaptable.
this? Yeah.
Humans are adaptable. And that's kind of my point, was that if you've spent a long time or maybe even your whole life feeling like there isn't a version of a social interaction for you that isn't either where you feel unwelcome or that you might feel exhausted or tedious or kind of like Trevor walking into a space that you're not welcome in. And maybe that's been true, but I think that there's maybe a version of that isn't such a bad experience. Maybe there's a version of that you aren't exhausted by.
I mean, when you as a very fat person, as, someone who likes fat people, when you get to be in a space where you are just normal, it is not this thing of like, he's really fat. Like, and then, there's like, it's like, and I wonder if they're just like looking at how fat I am and just kind of, or, what they're thinking, or they're going to judge me for, I don't know,
promoting diabetes,
eating another appetizer.
I just want to get a t-shirt that says "Get Diabetes."
When you can just be yourself and it's just normal, you just get to interact like the normal people do.
Right.
And I think like at we talked about this a lot, like Chub Chaser event, like I can do the level of interaction and networking that Dan does at a normal level so easily.
At an event,
it is so easy, because especially like Bigger Vegas, where it is like this, we have taken over a huge space. So it is really just like, this is a little pocket dimension where I just get to be.
Well, and that's what, again, it's not that I'm trashing your label of introvert, Michael. That's not that at all. It's just that
I tease you about it. It doesn't.
I just think that sometimes, the whole introvert extrovert model is inadequate to capture our experience.
Yeah.
And Trevor is giving a really good demonstration of what this is, because if you put him, on this podcast, you would never guess he was the introvert on this podcast. He's the funny guy on this podcast.
Yeah.
And if you drop him in Bigger Vegas, he's going to be Mary McCheese.
I think
introducing everybody.
Yeah. I think what I'm pointing to, which is in support of what you're saying, is that if you feel, I think the dangerous thing that Dan's pointing out is when you identify as an introvert and you believe so wholly in that label, it makes you believe that you cannot have a good social interaction,
which leads
people.
to closing doors.
Which maybe, and there's nothing wrong with being a homebody. Trust me, that is me to a T. But being an introvert doesn't necessarily mean that there isn't a version of social life out there that can be really, really rejuvenating and positive.
It's sort of like, picture all social interactions as being that play school toy where you have a board with all these different shapes cut into it, that you have blocks that you slide through. And when the right block will slide through that right hole. But every time you try and put it through a different hole, you're gonna have to cut off a piece of that block, right? Yeah. Every time you're entering a social situation that isn't made for your block, you're cutting off a little piece of yourself or closing it off for that interaction. Well, which is going to make it uncomfortable.
I will say that, so even though I'm generally I'm more introverted in just, I don't know, normal civilian spaces, and I can get more extroverted in fat spaces, or even just the more I am comfortable with a group of people, the more extroverted I am. But I know I have encountered people where it was like someone I wasn't familiar with, and it was kind of a fat space, and they were very introverted in that space, and I was like, oh, are they not having a good time? Are they, whatever? And I found out later that it's like, oh, their partner was like, oh my God, they so-and-so had such a great time. And they were just so, they loved being in that space. And I was like, oh, I wouldn't have guessed that. But that, even though they're still introverted in that space, it was energizing to them to be around that energy. Yeah. So I think that can still, that can be true even if someone is still just kind of introverted. And
I want to clarify, there's a difference. There's a big difference between introverted and socially awkward. You can be a socially awkward extrovert, and you can be an introvert that isn't socially awkward, but it's more a management of energy. Where do you feel energized and where do you feel exhausted?
I want to go back to something you said at the beginning, Michael. I think you were talking about having to manage and having the filters and it being sapping your energy and things like that. And I totally get what you mean. Like I said, my experience of that is I get bored.
Sure.
I'm fine being there, but I need something to do. I find myself in my phone. And I grant you, if there's such a thing as an extrovert, boy, am I it. I grant you that. But it's also kind of weird because so much of what we're talking about, this whole podcast, is also, it's kind of what I do. It's my life. So when I go to that mixer and that guy from Yale says, so what do you do? This comes out of my mouth, this podcast. What do you do? I mean, I actually, like all good extroverts and promoters, I have an elevator pitch. That's what I say at those mixers. I say, oh, well, I write and talk about what comes up for people when sexuality intersects with fatness. And they're like, oh, and all of a sudden that's the whole conversation because, well,
that's either new. It's something they've never heard.
No one says that. That's not, oh, I'm an actor.
Oh, no, God.
So, and what happens is people will either glaze over and leave immediately, which is fine. That's rare.
Well, not everyone likes new things.
Yeah. Well, and also the fat thing makes them nervous and blah, 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 blah. But usually what happens is either what? And I have to explain it. Or this fascination oh my God, you do what? You say you teach pandas to play chess? And it becomes this anomaly that they must investigate. But my point is that you don't have to necessarily hide where you're coming from. When Trevor says oh, I'm on the board of NAFA. What's that? Well, it's the National Association to Advance Fast Acceptance, And it all of a sudden becomes a form of self-expression in the room that gives you a place to stand where otherwise you might have felt you didn't have a place to stand.
Sure. And I guess my point is that for you, based on how you've described it, that comes easily.
But for Trevor, I think you were just saying that if you could just say, oh, well, I'm on the board of NAFA, that would make it easier to be in that kind of, sharing what you're doing space.
Yeah, I mean, I still might have to go to the bathroom to throw up or something. I think I will just be E.T. at the end of the night, be E.T. when he's all pale and wrinkly, but I can do it more now, I think.
Well, and I think you enjoy it.
Yeah.
I mean, not enjoy it sign me up, but enjoy it
in the right circumstances.
Yeah, exactly.
I enjoy it I enjoy working out. I get something from it. It's good for me, but I still just am, gross and sweaty at the end of it.
I'm just plugging self-expression.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, what you're talking about is creating the space for yourself. Versus, and what I'm talking about is finding the space that exists.
Yes.
So two different ways to go about the same thing.
Exactly right.
And I think, going back to what I said about the introvert who was, quiet but still energized by that space, I think that's fine too, to just use that as a space to be and to recharge for your general life and just really get to be, even if you're just sitting there and enjoying, I don't know, me talking about being like ET.
In my experience, so I before we wrap this up, I have some thoughts, and maybe I was going to ask you guys about like where to find chub chaser spaces. And my first thought, having gone down this road before, was not that you can't find people worthwhile to hang out in bigger city, because that's how I met both Don and Trevor. But that sort of comes with a lot of major caveats as far as the whole bigger Vegas, like will we, won't we thing that hangs in the air of like, yeah.
So yeah, I totally get what you're talking about. I think, for example, chasers in particular, chubs are better at this. Chasers in particular do not talk to each other. And it is a huge problem, not only for the chasers, but also for the chubs. And I think a surprising amount of people are open to having a conversation about this experience. Like, I'm a chub, you're a chub, do you want to grab dinner? I'm a chaser, you're a chaser, do you want to grab coffee? Because we live 5 miles from each other, because we live 10 miles from each other. And there's nothing sexual on the table. Like, you got to make that clear, because you're there. Otherwise, it's like you're in your head about it. Unless you want there to be something sexual on the table, and that's something else.
That's
something else. Yeah, just talk about it. But just the idea of like, hey, wouldn't it be fun to hang out?
Bigger City has personality traits on there. They have hobbies on there. You can search by
I
those
find
things.
that everybody, is this true of you guys? I find that everybody kind of just puts everything on those.
A lot of people do.
For the check boxes, I think
Those are the ones I don't respond to.
Oh, okay.
No, but I really respect when somebody has taken the time to say something on their profile. You can get a flavor. You can get a flavor even if it's blank. You know, blank has a flavor.
True. Yeah.
So, and by the way,
It's a good flavor.
if you're looking for a nice, non-sexual, non-awkward overture, comment on someone's interests.
Sure. I also think, I mean, I get this from, there is a lot of Facebook groups out there, some of which are a little trashy, but like, I also know plenty of people who have like, Chub Chaser Bear gaming group of Southern California, and like people on there regularly meet up and have game nights if that's your thing. And so I would, if this may not be an issue for people, but if you feel like that's something you could get something out of in your life that you would enjoy or potentially could enjoy, what are you?
I'm just thinking of the time that I tried to organize a writing group. And that was a nightmare.
I tried to do that with a filmmaking group.
Okay. So I did organize a writing group. I'm in it, and it's going really well. But here's the difference. I knew all of them as writers before I invited them to the group.
Yeah, mine was meetup.com. I do not realize that. So it was very confusing. That's just, maybe that'll be like a mini-sode story sometime.
So my suggestion, if you feel like, I want to do that, but I don't want to just open the door to whoever comes in, maybe take a writing class, maybe go to a writing workshop, and then if you find people that you click with, invite them to the group.
Yeah. And also, the best advice I can give is if you're going to start up a group, don't be afraid to fail. It's okay. Because if you fail once or twice, the third time you might get it right.
Yeah,
you're going to learn a bit more. Each time you do it, you might find one person to add to that ongoing group that you're building.
Well, it's so poignant because, just because you fail once doesn't mean it's a bad idea.
Yeah.
Sure. And I think you can, if you're making the group yourself, you can say writing group for beginners, you can.
Yeah, that's a story for another time.
So anyway, the main point for me was just like, it's possible. It's possible even if you feel like you've had so many life experiences making you feel like you don't have a social setting where you're not going to feel exhausted. It's possible to find one.
I mean, we already talked about my tip, but I think this is kind of ties in. We are doing our little group self-care jam session. Maybe you'll meet some pals
on Zoom
there.
in October.
Date to come. If you really are interested in kind of talking self-care with fat folks, people who love fat folks, let us know what time zone you're in and like good time. I mean, we're going to do our best to accommodate everyone, but people who are like super interested, let us know.
Yeah, and we'll try and make something work.
Yeah, and it's bit. We're chomping at the bit.
So, Don, do you want to set up how you came up with this bit, or do you want to just dive in?
Let's dive in.
Okay.
You tell me if I need the disclaimer after we've gone through this mess.
I'm so excited.
There is a theme for today's bit. See if you can figure out what it is. So since we were talking about sort of finding your people this week and finding the right situation, I thought I would do a episode on star-crossed people, soulmates, things that came in together and went out together in special ways.
Okay.
People joined by destiny.
Is this like mass ritual suicide?
Okay, I just gotta say,
I live with a catastrophist.
I do remember researching this, and holy crap, most of these are really, really dreadful stories. These are awesome. So I stuck with the happy
ones that
upbeat
got cut
ones.
out.
All right. So Mark Twain. Mark Twain is famous as an author and famous wit whose words have inspired generations of American writers. Maybe it's a sign from above that both his birth and death coincided with what event?
I think I know.
I'm going to give you hints. Buzz in when you think you know what it is. Trevor already thinks, and everyone only gets one guess.
Okay.
We're adding that. Okay. Trevor, do you want to use your one guess right
no,
now?
I'm going to wait for you to give one. And then
Okay. First hint.
I have no idea.
It's an out of this world event.
Buzz.
Ding, 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 ding,
Buzz,
ding.
Buzz.
Oh,
I think
Trevor
Trevor
buzzed
got it
first.
No, I said I know first.
Haley's Comet.
You are correct.
I knew that.
Mark Twain was born and died on the days that Halley's Comet were first sighted.
And yet they call it Haley's Comet.
Yeah. What's up with that?
I thought it was interesting. There's a quote about him. There is a quote from him before he died predicting it would happen again. He wrote, "The Almighty has said, no doubt, now here are these two unaccountable freaks. They came in together. They must go out together."
It'd be cool if Haley's Comet killed him. Like he's just on his deathbed and he sees it. He's like,
I
such beauty. And then it just smashes.
I think he's gaming the system. I think he
Obliterates
waited for the
him.
comet to
I did
die.
actually read one of these stories about a family called the Comet family. That was their last name, whose house was hit by a comet.
Oh, no.
So that was interesting.
I was just asking for it.
Esther and Paul Grachen had been seeing each other for a short time when Paul decided to ask her to be his girlfriend. That day, while paying for a sandwich, he noticed that a dollar bill he was about to hand to the cashier had something special on it. How strange, he thought, that this should happen right when he was thinking about his relationship with Esther. He kept the bill and decided to frame it and gave it to her as a gift. She was speechless when she saw it. Many years later, after they were married, Paul found out why Esther knew at that exact moment that they were going to be married. What was on that bill?
Her picture, because she's Ulysses S. Grant.
A diamond ring.
You didn't buzz. All right. First hint. It was written in pencil.
Uh-oh.
It was a word.
Buzz?
Trevor,
It was her name.
that is correct. She had written her own name on a dollar bill after a prior breakup and sort of said a little prayer saying, I will marry the person who gives this dollar bill back to me. That
Holy
sort of
shit.
thing.
Now, did he know that she had done that?
No, he didn't know it was her handwriting.
He just saw her name and kept the bill.
Yep. And apparently she didn't tell him in the moment because she thought that bringing up marriage at that early point would freak him out.
That's probably wise.
Yep. I love that.
That's a tall tale. I don't believe any of that.
It was actually on an NPR episode of This American Life. So
Well, then you know it's true.
Of
course.
NPR
Must
wouldn't
be
lie to
true.
us.
Ira's sacrosanct.
all right. Final question of the day. 80-year-old
I don't understand the question.
Take two. 80-year-old Xu Weifang of Jiangsu province, China, saved an 8-year-old boy from drowning despite his advanced age and recent injuries. But the events took an interesting turn when Xu discovered that 30 years prior, he had actually done what?
Buzz.
Ooh, Trevor.
That he had saved the boy's father from drowning.
That is correct. Well done.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, these are all sort of famous coincidences that most of all of these have been documented. So
Wow.
they can be backed up if you search for them online.
What a does this guy just like hang out at lakes, like waiting for people to start?
Well,
drowning?
it helps when you drown the guy first.
Oh, that does make for a better story.
What it didn't say on there was whether or not like he was a family friend, like he'd bonded with the kid he saved, and So he was just happened to be around.
You know, I saved your father when he was your age.
Why don't you get in the water?
Never go swimming around Uncle Zhu.
And Trevor, if you've ever been saved by somebody, where can people let us know on social media?
Well, we're on Instagram and Twitter as Big Fat Gay Pod. We're on Facebook as the Big Fat Gay Podcast. 5 stars there, 5 stars Apple. Support us on Patreon. Why not? We got a lot of cool shit there now.
Yeah, we do.
See the articles we talked about at www.bigfatgaypod.com. Maybe you are a balloon. And you're not one of the nice balloons that's a little girl. You're a dirty balloon, and you're at the balloon strip club.
Oh, no.
And I realized that this is not part of the episode, so you have to go to Patreon for the full context of this. So the balloon's coming out, the music's starting, so
watch out. I'm sorry, what part of the episode was that?
I don't know. I don't know either.
before the episode,
That was the balloon strip show. How could you guys forget the balloon strip show?
I still don't remember.
My brain.
He played the music with his squeaking balloon.
God, this guy who was trying to get his.
yeah.
How could you forget that?
Because I didn't remember it that way.